Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 70. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Today's guest. This is a family affair. This is the second time I've had a family member on here. This one, before I let you introduce yourself, this one is like a fascinating. I've been pumped about this one since you said yes to doing this. And just to give people context on what's actually happening right now, you and I have met once.
Yep.
We recently figured out that we were like second cousins.
Yep.
My mom and your dad are cousins. And we started. I figured it out a while ago. We connected on Instagram, met once face to face at Tail Gunner Brewery for all of 7 minutes.
Hey, Jeff.
Yep. And now here we are today about to shoot a podcast. And this is the first time I'm going to hear your story. So this is what happens. This is how wild this podcast has got, because it's allowed me to be in situations like this that are just so unique. So go ahead, name and who you are.
Hello, my name is Chris Green. I am a full-time bladesmith here in Calgary, born and raised. All I do is make knives and teach other people to make knives. And it's my passion. You know, ever since I saw Conan the Barbarian about 13 years ago, it's like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And everything's been focused towards getting to that point in my life. And here I am. So it's pretty fucking cool.
So super cool. And you know, it's to hear you say born and raised here is even more of a mind fuck for me, because our paths have never crossed.
I know, right?
and you and I, neither one of us understand what the family connection is and how it goes. But like we said, we're going to figure it out. But it's so bizarre that we're in the same city, related, never met. But the other interesting piece is the creative piece, and the amount of like, you're a super creative person. I start to wander down a creative path. Your dad's creative. Your brother's creative. So it's very interesting to see that, you know,
slowly just kind of
like there's
comes together.
And all of a sudden, as a creative person in my family, I don't feel like such a wild card, because like
totally. I mean, to me, like the Greens, like my dad's the Green. There's a creative side, but it's a very subdued creative side. It doesn't really come out like overtly. And so for me, working into that sort of creative artistic side, it was different, because I was always like, you're going to be the engineer, you know, you're going to do the archaeologist stuff, you're going to, and I never felt that like creative thing. My mom is super creative, like jewelry making, paper, all that sort of stuff, but I never saw that in myself. And so when I finally dropped into that, I was like, oh, here I am.
This fits.
Yeah, it fits, and it feels great.
So you've seen little clips about this show. So what I like to do is I like the guests to go back as far as they want to go, how they grew up, where they grew up, what inspired them, what they were into, sports, school, art, how your parents kind of shifted you along the way. And then I'm just going to like drag you along to where you are today. All right. And the cool thing about this is we're fucking family. I get to hear this for the first time face to face. So it just, I'm going to say that like 10 times in this show, but I really mean it. So take it back as far as you want to go.
My first memory is actually in Parkdale, along Memorial Drive, right next to the river. It's kind of like across the street from where the Lazy Loaf and Kettle is now. Is that Park? That's Parkdale.
Yep.
Yeah. And I have a memory of like walking like this in diapers and hearing my diapers crinkle. That's my earliest memory.
No way.
So, and there's moths in the air floating around and stuff.
You were like,
I must have been young.
but
Either
visually,
that or
but you can see this. Like you can like,
and I had like some pajamas on and doing that thing. So that's my earliest memory. And so, Calgary from there, moving to Northwest Calgary, growing up through there, you know, doing the snowshoeing, the cutting trees down, and just my parents were really good at like getting us to do stuff. Yep. And that was cool. We always were involved with something, either sports wise or something like that. And my dad being running Masters Gallery for as many years as he did.
Did you do that when you were like young?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was interesting for him, or for me rather. Well, maybe it was interesting. So during the day he'd work at the Masters Gallery, and at night he came home and he would work on his microscope, looking at water samples, because he has a degree in biology, and so he'd analyze water samples for various groups, right? And that's he'd make a little bit extra money doing that. Yep. So I have memories of him suit and tie coming home, ripping it off, getting in his t-shirt, and sitting on his microscope for hours at a time. So it was kind of a neat dichotomy. And my mom was getting involved into jewelry making and stuff like that. So I was always exposed to all sorts of arts here and there and stuff like that. So
would they, go like the outdoors? Were they dragging you around to the outdoors, or was it more like sport club kind of things, or what was happening?
More so like, yes, to the sports stuff, baseball, hockey, that kind of stuff.
I grew up like just,
Yeah.
they put you in everything they could or what you're interested in.
Yeah, find out what your interests are and you go from there, right?
Yep.
But yeah, in terms of like dragging to the outdoors, yeah, I mean, you're young and you don't want to leave the house because it's cold and stuff, stuff like that. But, you go through it looking back, oh, I'm glad I did that.
Yeah.
Right? Kind of forms that appreciation for the natural world.
Yeah.
Right? Sunrise, sunsets, that sort of stuff. Yeah, it was awesome, really, like, think about it.
So what is actually, like when you're going through junior high, high school, what's...
F.E. Osborne and Sir Winston Churchill.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are you going through at these times? So when I say that, and for me, I mean like junior high was an interesting time, just, getting into sport at a decent level, being super shy, like what does junior high and high school look for you?
Oh, I played, I was the goalie.
Oh, no way.
I was the shy one.
Yeah.
Wanted to be covered in the armor, right? And
who'd you play? What quadrant were you in coming up?
Well, it was Crowchild, so Northwest.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was Trails West.
Oh, okay. We probably played against each other.
Well, that's it. So all of a sudden I'm thinking like because I'm 77.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden we grew up playing hockey at the exact same time in Calgary. So Crowchild and Trails West. So there's got to be, who knows if it ever happened, but there was some, anyways, I remember wild names back then of those Crowchild guys because there were some really good hockey players.
Yeah.
So what's going on? Junior high, high school? Are you just like
I'm
figuring things out? Are you
I mean, I'm quiet, keeping myself, listening to a lot of metal, playing video games.
Metal?
Oh yeah, of course.
No way. You say no way, but in junior high, I was listening to, my cousin exposed me to this, there used to be this place called The Attic on Stephen Ave.
Oh yeah.
It's a music store.
Yeah.
And his buddy started creating these tapes that were like, it was the first like electronic music I've ever heard.
Oh wow.
So when I was in junior high,
Yeah.
for my whatever birthday it was, 13th or 12th, I was getting like NWA, Tone Loc. Like that was the music I was listening to.
Yeah.
But heavy metal.
Yeah.
What were you listening to?
I was introduced to Metallica.
Yep.
And from there, I was just Megadeth, you name it, Guar, whatever, right? All that sort of stuff.
Yep.
I have trouble listening to it today though. But every now and then I'll break out Ride the Lightning, but it doesn't really compute to my brain anymore. Actually, what you just mentioned with the NWA and that Tone Loc, that actually feels better to me now. Later in life,
It's so weird how it just like all flips around.
Yeah, it really does.
So as far as the creativity, is school just, the reason I'm asking is just because my creative interest didn't show up till like way later. It could have been like grade 12.
Yeah, I took art, I think, for the first time because it was the only thing available, I think, in grade 10.
Did you have an
or
option?
11.
Like art or band or something?
Yeah, and I've never been musically inclined. It's just not, I played the piano. It never really came to me. I struggled. It just wasn't something that I could do. Even today, like I'm trying to teach myself the banjo. My fingers just don't quite like move. Yeah, I took art in high school. I think I took it for maybe 1 or 2 semesters, but it was a struggle.
Yeah,
like the idea of drawing and painting, it was really hard for me. But the thing that I took away from that was just being in that moment of just enjoying a small spot of creativity.
Yeah.
And later in life, once I had got kids and stuff, we'd sit down and do art projects, and I found I really actually enjoyed watercolor, which was really kind of neat to me. But I never did anything else really sort of creative-wise. My brother was drawing all the time, so he's an amazing drawer. He'll tell you to this day he's a terrible drawer, but he's really good.
So you're seeing it. So your family, you're seeing it like pretty close to home. That like here's what an artist should look like. Here's the talent level they should have.
Yeah, and being involved with Masters Gallery and my father and that, I'd see artists.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's not me, right? That's not who I am. I'm the guy that plays hockey and listens to metal. Yeah.
It's so crazy that that's because when you are playing hockey and you are listening to metal, you kind of feel like there's a certain direction you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you working when you're growing up? Junior high and high school? You
was
jobs?
I working? I worked for my dad at the gallery.
Dude, it's a perfect segue. I was wondering where the gallery fits into your life.
So I worked there on Saturdays? Yeah. And I just kind of tidy up and stuff like that.
Where was it?
This was when it was still on 17th Ave. where I think it's V-Burger or Arc'teryx is now one of those buildings. Was in there.
Yep.
And it was in that position for a long time, almost like 30 plus years, I think.
Okay.
Tiny little space on the bottom of like, So yeah, I worked there a lot, washing floors and doing mugs and putting out cookies and stuff. And
family business.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like it was just kind of like, again, this is like, I know about Masters.
Yeah.
That I've known about it a little more closely because of your family, but I really don't know, like, what it felt like back then. Like, was it? I know what it is right now.
Yeah.
But back then, when you're working in this environment, like, what's actually happening?
It was like two families. There was the Ohlers and then the Greens, and so Peter Ohler Sr., who played for the BC Lions years and years ago, he kind of started it, and my dad was brought in, and they ran it together for many, many years. Peter Ohler Sr. ended up moving to go back to Vancouver and started another Masters out there. And so my dad stayed here and ran the Calgary side of Masters. And his son ended up working with my dad. And they still kind of became partners over the years. So it was like a two-family operation. And yeah, it was very family oriented.
Yep.
We'd Friday nights, Saturday nights, we'd be sending out mail outs. So we'd have to stuff envelopes and lick them. And that was... I did that for years.
Did you appreciate the environment you were working like as a?
Probably not, because I was a young teenager and didn't really sort of dawn on me what it was.
Yep.
But looking back, just having that, the only word that's popping in my head is like stability, right?
Yep.
Like this is it. There's a normality to the children coming in to work with the mother or the father, right?
Yeah.
And it's how they're brought in, how they're shown things and stuff like that.
Did you have a choice? Did you have a choice?
I think I did. I think I did. Like, although young me was probably like, I don't have a choice.
Mom and dad say I'm going to work, and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, but I did at one point say, can I start working more? And I think that's when I started earning a little bit of money. Like I was getting $10 an hour. I don't know what it was. Not, whatever. Not gas money, right? To go play hockey, buy my tapes.
check.
Done. Yeah, I mean, it was fun. I think, like looking back, it was enjoyable.
So you're working, going to school. What happens after high school? Things are just. It sounds like a normal path.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's no like spidey senses are going off.
Yeah, I essentially failed high school. I just didn't have the desire to do it. I just never was academically inclined.
Ever? Like
ever.
Like junior high struggle, high school struggle.
I struggled, absolutely struggled. And somewhere at some point after I had to do some upgrading.
Did you like drop out, get kicked out?
No, nothing like that.
You finished?
I finished. Okay. I went back to, do you remember Viscount Bennett?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did some upgrading there.
Yep.
I think I just needed English or something. So I did that, and somewhere along the line, I encountered archaeology. I don't know how or when or why or whatever, but I knew from that point on I had to become an archaeologist. And once I got my upgraded, so I finally passed.
Yep.
I went to the U of C, and was,
you got in?
No, hell no. Fuck
Okay.
no. Like they laughed at me. They basically laughed at me.
Do you remember what it was to get in? So you and I, where did you graduate? 95?
94.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Surprise.
77, baby.
And just quickly before you get going, so my school struggle was real too. You know, like math 49, social 60s.
Yeah.
You know, like just horrible.
Just scrape by.
Just horrible.
Yeah.
And no direction, no path, no idea what to do.
Yeah.
To get into university back then was like, I don't know, a 72 or a 74, whatever the number was.
I was nowhere near. I was like 67.
Okay, me too.
Yeah.
So you figure out archaeology is your thing, and obviously you realize that post-secondary is like your
I had option. To do it. Yeah, it was like, what else am I going to? I also at the time I was also cooking. I was had got a job working at a backcountry lodge in Yoho National Park. No electricity, no running water, and that introduced me to cooking. And my mom, who was also she had cooked everything from scratch, so I had this good introduction to cooking. And then I was working at this lodge over the summer, and that really got my cooking juices going. So I started to work for a restaurant called Celadon, underneath where where was it now? It was by the Cookbook Company or Cookbook Company Cooks. It was next to it, underneath of it.
Okay.
So I worked there for a little while, and that sort of got me some money together. And while I was doing that, I was upgrading at, was upgrading the right word? Probably not the right word. At Mount Royal College.
Okay.
I was able to get in because my marks.
Thing?
Sorry?
Were you doing like a transfer to UC?
Yeah. Yeah, I took a computer science course, hated it. And then I took, that's what it is. That's the connect. That's where it is. I had to take a science or social elective, and I took an archaeology 201 or 101, and I was like, this is really cool. And that's where I shifted my gears into like, how do I get into this? And that's from there, slowly worked my way up into, but going through all that process, I finally turned 22, and at 22, you can apply as an adult student, just post-secondary education, and that's how I got in.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know about that rule.
Yeah.
What was it about archaeology that got you? Like you say it so emphatically. That's like
there was like there was like an Indiana Jones kind of coolness factor to it, you know. I was really into Mesoamerican kind of stuff, as Mayan things, and
always,
like, well, not anymore.
Yeah,
I mean it's still super cool, but that was old Chris.
Yeah.
So I went and did that. Been schooling for like 13 years. Came out with a master's degree.
Okay, hold on.
I'll backtrack.
That class.
Yeah.
You can literally go to a moment in time where you're like, this is the career. This is gonna put me on a path.
And in this moment, as you're asking me, I remember what it was. There was these skulls that it's called trephination, and these ancient peoples would cut into the skull to perform brain surgery. Like if it was head trauma, they had to remove the piece. And I was so fascinated by the level of what's the word? Just I was amazed at the level of knowledge that ancient peoples had to be able to support somebody from a health standpoint, like the technology required to do that. And it's kind of unbelievable, like performing brain surgery with nothing but stone tools. And these people lived because these things healed back up. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of got me, I was like, what else is tied into all that? Mm-hmm. So that's the moment. Yeah.
And once the school struggle's real, you and I felt, I'm sure, exactly the same. Lost souls, fucking doctors, lawyers, engineers. I'm like, no. What are we gonna do with our lives? Uh-oh. The minute you find something you can grab onto, you have the interest, the skill set, the brain power to go all in and like figure it out, and then start excelling.
I never excelled academically. I was an okay student. I passed, but nothing like, oh wow, Chris, this is going to change the face of this scientific approach. I just kind of got by.
Yep.
And it was going through university. It was always a struggle for me. Just names and dates and times do not stick in my head, which is funny if you're an archaeologist because you have to rely on names and dates and times.
Yeah.
So I gravitated towards more to sort of like philosophical things of how people viewed the land and how they used it as an artifact of like, essentially you can analyze the land as like an arrowhead. So that really spoke to me because it wasn't like, I didn't have to know the names and dates and times. Like it's more like feeling.
Yep.
And that's got me going. Yeah.
So the cooking thing is another like tangent. You're doing the cooking thing summers while you go to university?
Yeah.
And do you, creativity, interest, where it is, like what is it that actually keeps you?
I think the idea of like taking the raw, not again, but that's the first time I said it, taking raw materials, putting them into something and putting like your creative impulses onto them and turning into something, in the case of food, delicious and beautiful and like full of your love.
Yep.
Always kind of spoke to me. And just having somebody, like I make soups these days. I love making soups and I love giving soups because to me it's like there's a lot of love and everything has to come together, and there's your soup.
and you watch your mom like growing up.
Yeah,
that was a big like.
Yeah, everything's from scratch. Everything.
And when did you realize how cool that was?
Probably like
when you left the house, like when you're long gone,
when
and
I'm
then you
40.
realize, then you realize how good things were back then. You're like, oh, that's what. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, the
And
lights
well, I realized it when I was trying to make my kids eat the food I made.
Right.
And
yeah. So university, finish it, and you get a degree in something.
a Bachelor of Science.
Yeah.
Bachelor of Science in archaeology, or was it Bachelor? No, it was Bachelor of Arts in archaeology.
Yeah.
That was 5-6 years, I guess, maybe longer. Feels longer.
Which, again, like to actually finish that program was an accomplishment, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I kept wanting to go back to upgrade to raise my mark, and I did it a couple times, but my marks never improved. So I just kind of like, okay, enough.
This is what we have.
I'm like a B plus A minus student, and that's all I'm ever gonna be.
Which, well done.
Thank you.
So what happens? What are you thinking after you graduate?
I ended up working for an archaeological firm that. It's a contracts-based company hired by developers to investigate areas that are going to be developed. So the government of Alberta lays out guidelines for developers to follow in case they come in contact with historical resource stuff, like First Nations things, paleo, like all that sort of stuff. And so the company that I worked for, they were hired to excavate these two massive sites out near Brooks.
Okay.
They were going to put a well pad, like some well stuff in there.
Yep.
So it couldn't be moved. The well site couldn't be moved. So my first introduction to sort of like this sort of higher level archaeology was there. And it was like dig, rip it out. So you're salvaging.
Yep.
Essentially, most archaeology these days that's not academically leaning is salvage. So things are ripped out of the ground, information is recorded, and then reports are given out, and recommendations on how to proceed are given to the clients.
Yep.
So, but it's fun. Like you see a lot of country, pretty cool. I've got a lot, that's a whole other episode. I've got stories all about that.
How long did you work for this company?
It was a while.
Like a decade?
I think it was almost. It was
Okay.
close. Maybe
Okay.
not quite that, but it's somewhere in there. It was a long time.
And took you everywhere? Like took you across Canada, North America?
Mostly Western Canada,
Okay.
a little bit in Saskatchewan, mostly Alberta, a little bits in BC. And I have done, when I was doing field school work through the U of C, I was in the Caribbean, which was amazing and eye-opening. And I spent a few months there doing that. So I've, and then I've done some stuff in England, but that's still coming up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was amazing. It was lots of fun.
What was it give, like what was speaking to you? What was the, not like a moment, but generally, what was making you energized to actually do this? What were you?
There's a physicality to it, especially when you're doing excavations and digging. Like it's a lot of hard work, like physically hard work. And it was neat to really sort of challenge my body and my mind to be faster and better and faster and better and faster and better.
And somewhat calculated when you're digging?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can't be...
Yeah, you map out, as you're digging down in these 1 meter by 1 meter squares, you have to map out all your finds. And, so you have to be meticulous, but at the same time, efficient.
Yeah.
And it was really neat. Like it was hot. It was like 40 degrees, no shade, and we were screening things with a big hose. And it was fun. A lot of fun. You get stuck in the truck and cows are pooping on your head. And yeah, it was awesome.
And like living on the road, that's all good with you? Like it was just...
No, I hated that. I hated every minute of living. Like there was years that I would spend almost, it felt like, well, I think it was almost 8 months living out of motels.
And that's not...
Oh,
dude, I hate that too.
No,
I hate it.
Hate it. And it might cringe having to stay in motels.
But you did it for...
Long time.
Just cause?
Yeah.
Did you think this was going to be... Did you think that was going to be your forever?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And at that time, I met someone, we got married. We were future casting. This is like a good stable thing to have. Yep. Maybe we'll have kids one day. And so it all felt good, And while I'm doing this contract stuff, I'm preparing myself to apply for my master's degree, and which I end up doing whilst I'm working for this company. And this is where my academics a lack of academic proficiency came in, is I applied for schools all over North America. I was like, sorry.
What kind of master's program?
Master of Arts.
Okay.
Yeah. So I eventually found a school in England, Bristol, England. They took me. They wanted that foreign money. I enjoyed it. I thought it was amazing. I'm glad I got to do it.
What was it about chasing your master's? It
was like a little, feather in the cap. It's like, I can do this.
And did you think that the rewards on the backside would kind of further your career?
Yes, 100%. Because in Alberta, in order to, I guess you could say, like run a dig or, reach into the next level of pay grades and all that sort of stuff, is you have to have a minimum of a master's degree to be able to perform certain archaeological things. Okay. And that was my goal, because that's what I wanted to do, was be the director of digs and all that sort of stuff. So that was
that's
what
kind of
I was going for.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So England.
So I went
to
England.
This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I went to England, lived in Bristol for nearly 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun.
And do you quit your job? Like, do you have to quit to go to school?
Oh yeah, because I'm there full time.
But they don't say, hey.
No, there was always like, when you come back, look us up.
Okay.
Yeah, it was that was on guaranteed. The table. Always on the table.
So what does it look like over in England? What is that actually?
Very different from here for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun.
Did you enjoy it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I loved it. You in my class, that year, there's people from all over the world. It was amazing. There was an Icelandic girl, a girl from Cyprus, New York. It was crazy. All over the place.
And what was it? Like, what is it that it's school? It sucks. But what is it that actually like got you going?
Well, that prize of knowing I'm going to get my master's degree, coming back to have my job.
Yep.
That was
like that job.
That's it. This is my career. This is what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
Yeah. Are you working while you're over there, or are you just schooling?
No, I tried. It's a little bit different. Like, it's hard to work, but I was volunteering. Yeah, I was doing small little things here and there that, kept the eye on the prize was to get as much archaeological experience. So when I came back to Canada to Calgary, I would have the job.
So you were putting you were checking all the boxes to get you to a spot that was going to let you be the guy on site.
Yep.
And everything was going to go.
Yep.
All right. It's awesome now knowing where you are. So whenever this starts to deviate, it's going to be awesome. So you finish it. Mm-hmm. Surprise yourself, or you knew that you're going to finish it once you were there?
There were some moments. Yeah, it was hard.
Just being away from home, or just the volume of work, or just having the brain power to do it?
Yes, all of those.
Yeah,
all those. That was when I realized I am not smart enough to do this. And it was a bit of a wake up. And I say it not like it's me being humble. It's like, okay, I'm recognizing my limit in terms of this is actually not for me. Mm-hmm. And I'd finished it, and I was so burnt out from the paper writing, from all the time.
Yeah.
And so when I came back, so the job that was on the table for me, I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do this right now. Mm. And there was a little bit of a burnt bridge there. And it was hard to sort of recover from that. And then I tried to kind of sort of get back into it, but it never really worked out. And when I was in England, that was when I first my first sort of experience with blacksmithing. That was when I encountered like the remnants of smiths.
Through school, or just being in that kind of part?
Just being in that environment.
Yep.
Yeah. We'd go for field trips out into the country, and there was like farmers or just regular people that would have museums. And it was amazing, right? The love and the care that they showed, the artifacts they dug up just in their garden. Mm-hmm. It was incredible. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of, we talked to smiths and how they made things. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. But it never really went any further than that.
Yeah.
So I had an idea of metalwork, what was entailed in it through archaeology. And
it was that you appreciate the history of it.
Yeah.
You see it was kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, before you keep going, where's your family fit into all this? Are they, is mom and dad, do your thing, go get it?
Yeah.
Proud of you.
They're ridiculously supportive and that kind of stuff. Yeah. It was amazing.
No, there was never, The push for the gallery, push for the family business, anything. Just like do your thing.
Yep.
Find your path.
Yep.
And we'll just support you any way we can, whatever you.
Yeah, and that was knowing that was there on the table was very freeing.
Yeah.
Because I've talked to other people. It's like, no, you're doing this, but I was never forced into anything. You know, it was like, well, you can work at the gallery, or you can do this.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, that really speaks to me, so I'm
Go that way.
Go that way. Yeah.
Okay. So you come back, bit of a burnt bridge.
Yep.
And then what starts to happen?
Well, then I'm still in archaeology in that world, right?
Got your master's.
Yeah, I got my master's. I'm not really doing anything with it. I end up working for a company. I'm leading the cruise at this point.
So you're like kind of ish where you wanted to be?
Yeah, kind of ish. But there's always like back of that mind. And it was really hard on me. My wife and I had just had a baby at that time. I was never home. And I wanted to be home to be with my family and my kid. And I remember it was 8 months in the field up north in Fort McKay. And if you've ever been in northern Alberta in spring and summer, like the mosquitoes and the bugs are fucking relentless. You know, you'd be on the phone and it's and that sound every day, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, permeates your bones. And you start to question your sanity. And never why am I up here? You know, when I could be back home. And I ended up staying on with the company as cataloging stone tools. And I'm not shitting you when I say this. I was working on a collection of stone tools. And we're not talking just arrowheads. We're talking like little bits and pieces of debitage that flake off after you make stone tools.
Wow.
Like 5 million pieces. So if you can imagine being in a basement room with a big building above you, no windows, artificial lights, looking at tiny stones for 8 hours a day.
Dude.
Crack. Something broke inside me. And I quit then and there. Yeah, I think I went in at like 8 o'clock, work time starts, right? Sat down for 5 minutes and I was like, and I broke.
That was it?
Yeah. And I went upstairs and I'm like, I'm done. And I walked home that day. I told my wife and she's like, okay.
Which family.
Yeah.
And when you quit, there's obviously a lot of things going through your head when you actually walk through that front door.
Yeah. Yeah. But it felt good. It felt good to finally sort of make my peace with that. And now it's like, okay, what's next?
How old were you when you walked out? Walked out when you left your job.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just trying to put it in my... So 14 years ago. Okay. So I can't do, what is that? So 30, 31?
33, 30?
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, 33.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Pretty big moment when you decide to actually pull the trigger and walk away from that.
Yeah.
So what the hell happens? And your wife's like, okay, fine, we'll figure this out?
Yeah, we were kind of okay financially, so it was all right. And there was we'll figure this out. So, but the question is, what are you going to do now? Yeah. And
no idea. You had like zero idea.
Nothing.
Like
nothing.
Zero.
Nothing. I had no idea. All I knew was I couldn't do that anymore.
Were you willing? Was there ideas rattling around your head of like, I'll go get on the end of a shovel on construction? Will I do anything?
I didn't have any of those ideas because I was in a little bit of a shock. And looking back, I was actually battling depression.
Yeah.
And you're really numb. So some things don't, my memory of the whole might even be a little bit clouded too, because I was battling that, the inner demons, right?
Yep.
But to the best of my knowledge, that's how it played out.
Yep.
And so I'm sure, if you're in between things, right? Like, what do? You watch TV because you got nothing else to do. So I'm watching TV, right? And that's when Conan the Barbarian comes on. It comes on, there's like 2 and 7 or whatever it was on Sunday morning movie, 10 a.m. And I'm like, oh. And I'd seen the movie before as a kid, right? But seeing it again in the state I was in, and if you've ever seen it, and if you're familiar with it, the first 10 minutes are young Conan and his family, so his mom and his dad, making a sword. And like what I know now, the process is completely wrong, but it's okay. It's right. It's
for TV or for the movies.
But that taking those raw materials and transforming them into something beautiful and useful and functional, that hit me like a fucking ton of bricks. I was like, I want to do that. And then again, having known about it through archaeology, like blacksmithing through archaeology, I'm like, okay, so what's next? Like, how does a guy in 2010, whatever it is, figure out how to do this? Like, this has got to be dead. Like, nobody does this anymore. Yeah, really was. Well, almost is. And so the internet was still kind of a thing-ish back then. So I, hop on it and blacksmithing courses, Calgary, Alberta, and nothing in Calgary. There was something at SAIT, but it wasn't running at that time. I did find in Edmonton, however, was Sean Cunningham running a project through NAIT up there. And Sean Cunningham, if you're ever familiar, there's a poem called The Village Blacksmith by Longfellow Deeds, I think it is. And Sean is essentially, that is about him. He is a mighty man. He stands beneath his oak tree. He's big. He's gregarious. He's so funny. So he was running a course. And at the time, like, no one was really taking blacksmith. I mean, it was interesting.
Dude, I don't even it's been off the grid for a long time.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, okay, so what's next? Well, how do I get into this? So I looked, and there was one space left out of I think there was 5 students, if I remember correctly. And I was like, okay, this is it. So I took it, and that was like the following week. So I drove up to Edmonton, stayed in a hotel, motel, whatever there. And it was like 20 hours of learning how to swing a hammer. And I don't think I stopped smiling for 20 hours straight. I'm going to do that. Yeah.
Crazy. So a movie.
Yeah. Conan the Barbarian. It'll bring tears to my eyes if I watch it right now.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, the dad, and he's talking to Conan. He's like, Crom and the gods of the earth and the riddle of steel. And you're like, fuck yeah.
I'm in.
I'm Crom, I'm yours.
So as you're making this decision to go to Edmonton to take this course, what's your family, friends, is it like go, go, go? Is it like...
They're like, okay, sure, try it. Why not?
Trust it.
You got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Right? You're not working.
Yep.
You got time.
So what happens after this course? It's like an intro course to being a smith of some sort, just to show you
it's the traditional blacksmithing techniques, taking a square bar, putting a taper on it, making something pointy. Work that tip.
Yep.
I don't even remember if I came home, made anything. I probably did, but I don't remember. But I was always like, when I was talking with Sean, the guy running the course, I was like, I just want to learn the techniques. This is so fascinating. I don't care if I go home with it. I just want to do this. And he's like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. And at the time, I think he was in it for 20 years.
Okay.
Right. You name something, Sean has done it in metal. He's done it all. And so he's seen all sorts of people come and go. But I kept coming back.
More courses?
Yeah, he had 3 levels of courses.
Okay.
And
you just kept on signing up?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then I think on my second or third venture to Edmonton, I picked up an anvil, and I picked up a propane forge. And what else? I think I got a vice grip of some variety. I threw it into my Volkswagen Passat, and that was how I started.
So you had a handful of tools.
Yeah, I had a claw hammer and a pair of vice grips.
and some 2 or 3 courses in, whatever that training is, 60 hours maybe.
Yeah, if that.
and then that's it. The courses stop. You got to his 3rd tier of courses, and then it just kind of stops.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I took something at NAIT here too. I did. Yeah, I did. I took 1 course at NAIT here.
SAIT in Calgary?
Yeah, sorry, SAIT. Thank you.
Yeah.
SAIT NAIT. And that was a weekend thing too. I think we made a candle holder. Okay. I think I have that. I think I still have that in my shop.
And then what starts to happen? You have this new...
Well, what happens is I get really frustrated because I can't make anything proper. That's...
Where do you practice?
My wife and I, at the time, we had our first kid, and our second kid was along the way, and we're we wanted to do something different with our lives, raise our kids differently. So we sold our house here in Calgary and we moved to Galiano Island on the Southern Gulf Islands. So it's a little buttfuck of an island in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of like the last place you go before you jump into the Pacific Ocean, even though it's on the inland side.
So how do you go from, is this after you finish the courses?
Yeah.
So you're hitting restart.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, getting out of Calgary felt right.
Yeah, it felt right.
There.
Yeah, we needed, because we wanted a different life for our kids, something different than the urbanity that Calgary had to offer. And we weren't really doing what we wanted to do. And I was struggling to find a place to do forging in Calgary. Like, do I set up my garage? My neighbors are jerks. Yeah. Like, they're not going to go for this. Yeah. So we ended up coming across this. We kept looking farther and farther afield, and eventually ended up on Galiano Island. So pretty much bought the place. My wife actually went out and looked at it, and we bought it like right there. And it was a little cabin. Are you familiar with Panaboat cabins?
Nope.
So they're Canadian engineered homes. They are cold in the winter and hot in the summer. The walls are about 3-inch thick engineered boards that kind of interlock. Okay. So they're like, it's a horrible cabin. It's terrible. But it was cool because it was in the middle of the woods. We had 8 acres. We could do whatever we want. We had no neighbors. And we just kind of opened the door and kicked the kids out naked, and they would go crazy.
Homeschooling?
Oh, yeah. Homeschooling, unschooling, you name it. It's all there.
West.
Yeah.
Kind of off the grid-ish?
No.
Like it's powered, but you're really doing your own thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're isolated because you're on this tiny little island. The only way on and off is a ferry. You know, when you're tied, you're always watching the ferry time and stuff like that. It was isolating. It was cold. That first year was cold and dark, and I don't think I'd ever left my rubber boots. And that dampness just seeks into your bones. Coming from the prairies, I'm a prairie guy. I know that now. I miss the sky. There, the trees it's beautiful, but the trees, you can't see the sky. You know, it's damp, and you just never dry out in the winter. And when it snows, you can't get out your driveway. And
all of it.
No, thanks.
How long were you there?
4 years there. And then we moved to Salt Spring, which is hop, skip, a jump away.
Yep.
And we were there for like 6 years, I think.
Honing your craft?
Yes. Yeah, slowly. And at that time, I was able to travel a little bit and work with some really amazing smiths. I worked with probably the one that the most impact that was made to me was by a gentleman in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
You went?
Yeah.
Okay. Based on what? Sorry, like how'd you get there? Like, was it a job posting or is like?
No, I think I was just trying to find. Oh, I know what. I was talking to my friend Sean, who in Edmonton, and I was like, "Where'd I go?" He's like, "Well, go see this guy." So I found him on the internet, and he lives on the outskirts of Santa Fe, what was the outskirts of Santa Fe. It's now kind of encroaching on his land. But he billed himself as the granddaddy of all blacksmith schools. You come and spend 3 weeks with me and I'll teach you everything I know. And, you know, it was that was like what I wanted.
Yep.
And so we drove down there, packed the kids up, drove down there, stayed in a little Kiva, whatever, near the place. And I met Frank Turley, is the guy's name. And I would consider him would have considered him a grand master blacksmith. I mean, he had been forging metal since he was old enough to swing a hammer. And the funny thing about him was he told us he was 76. And he could still, to this day, can move more metal in one swing of his hammer than I've seen in anybody else. But the real kicker to all of this is he lied to us about his age. He was 96.
No way.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So he had been forging and working on metal for basically his entire life. So it was amazing to see. And he was a soft-spoken man. He would just kind of watch you and do that. And you'd do it, and it would work. It was incredible.
3 weeks?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Was that like your master's class?
It was a master's class and then some. So, yeah, he's the first day we're there, he's like, okay, we're going to make horseshoes. But you don't make a horseshoe from new stock. You go out to his scrap pile, a mound of horseshoes, which have been sitting and baking in the Santa Fe sun in winter for decades. They're rusted to all hell and gone. And you take two of them and you go back to your coal forge and you got to weld them together. So it's a process called forge welding. So it's a solid state welding. So you get the metal hot, so hot, and you hit it so hard that they go and they stick together. So I had to take two of those horseshoes and slap them together and make a whole brand new horseshoe. And that's what you used to do because you had to conserve your materials. And that was like day one. And that's it. Now, for me, knowing more about forging and smithing and stuff like that, forge welding is probably one of the hardest things you can get a student to do. It's, as Frank Turley said it, it's 9/10 panther piss and like, apologies, other way around. It's 1/10 panther piss and 9/10 just believing it's going to work. And it really is. Like you have to know, your willpower has to know that these two pieces of metals are going to stick together. Yeah, it was pretty impressive.
Did you, to have that opportunity, did it feel obscure? Did it feel like you were just on the right path? Did it feel like...
Yes, to all that.
It's like...
Yeah.
It's a... dude, I know nothing, obviously, about this, but he sounds like the dude. And to have some like Canadian guy living on some island...
Yeah.
To be able to go down there and spend 3 weeks with him, like...
First thing he said to me was, man, you've got a strange address. And it was a strange address. But yeah, it was pretty impressive. It was having the knowledge, having someone in the room with the knowledge and the experience to guide you through the process is pretty incredible. And it's, there's a physicality to it. There's a mental aspect to it. And it was kind of like everything that I've been missing in what I needed as to ignite passion in myself. Yeah.
So that's like big turning point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what? You come home, you come back to the island.
Yeah. Came home back to the island. First thing I did was make a spoon and went from there. But I still struggled.
Like, were you selling things? Did you make
Slowly.
anything over the years?
Yeah.
That was like...
I did. I was making small little hooks and things.
Yeah. Just decorative things or like just creative things that you were just thinking about?
Yeah. I mean...
Like markets? Selling markets? What were you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I did all that kind of stuff. Made little hooks, sold them for like $10 and railroad spike things and just... I mean, you name it, I've probably made it in metal.
So, blacksmith?
Yeah.
Living in the sticks?
Yeah.
And then shows up at these markets, sells things, sells his wares.
Yeah.
That was kind of the life for a while?
Yeah.
That's what it was?
Pretty much. And then I started working for the BC Ferries at the time.
Yep.
Just to kind of support everything else. Yeah, and I built myself a yurt, erected that. Well, it was funny because my wife at the time, she was pregnant, and we were building this yurt, and she's holding up one thing, and I'm holding another thing, and on scaffolding, and it was pretty funny.
Family affair.
It really was, yeah. So our daughter was probably running on somewhere. Yeah.
No shoes.
No, there was like a good span of 10 years where my children only wore rubber boots. Yeah. If we had to go anywhere, it was just like something over top. Yeah.
The outdoor like pajama thing.
Pretty much, yeah.
So what happens? Where does this start turning? Where does this like, we're on the table right now are these like wild knives. I know nothing. I have no idea what it takes to pull these off, but obviously it's like skill. So where does your path start to like, either do you figure it out on the islands or do you come?
It started to change when we moved to Salt Spring. I had to start it kind of from ground zero to build another shop. And I started again in a tiny little lean-to woodshed. And that was when, because I didn't really have the space I had when I had the yurt from Galliano. And so I was really kind of tied into, at least initially, to just my forge and my hammer and my anvil. That's all I really had space for. I didn't have time to build anything else just yet. And that was when I started to kind of like really understand how to move steel. And once you kind of get that, when I teach these days, when I teach my students knife make and stuff, there's the best way I can kind of describe moving steel is if, when you're swinging a bat or swinging a golf club, you're always trying to find that sweet spot. It's like this, that, change. What is that? Little shoulders down, head up. I started to notice that in how I was swinging a hammer. And once I started to improve upon each progressive blow, I could see the metal moving for the first time.
In a way that you could, it's what you wanted to see?
Yeah.
Okay. At least how many years into this is it until you have this like aha thing? You're bouncing around the island for...
It's got to be
like 6, 7 years?
6, 7 years, yeah.
So you're banging a lot of metal.
Yeah,
trying to do your thing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you have this moment of like, oh,
yeah,
here we go.
Exactly. And I started to do it, and I was like, okay, now I'm finally seeing the results, and it was really empowering. And I was still making like the hooks and the bottle openers and all the little piggly things.
Yep.
And a good friend of mine who lives, where is he now? He was in Montreal at the time. I think he's in St. Catharines now. He said, well, can you make me a knife? I was like, yeah, I gotta make a knife. But at that time in blacksmithing, knife making was considered, if you're a knife maker, you're not a real smith. And so there was a bit of like, do I really want to do this?
Based on because it was too like commercial or like anybody could do it or it's just like
and
designer
the idea
stuff.
that anybody can do it.
Yeah, okay.
If you're forging a knife, you're not really forging. All that kind of BS and bullshit. So I made a knife. Made it out of like a leaf spring. I used cherry wood for my property, and I think I had like aluminum pins to hold the scales onto the handle and stuff like that. And I denied it to myself at the time, but something really spoke to me about taking different materials and putting them together. When I was doing the metal work, I always felt like there was something missing. And when I was doing, I made some larger kind of gate-like installation things, and I was always adding more than just steel. So aluminum, copper, brass, whatever I could kind of throw on there. And I really liked that, getting it all on there.
Yep.
So I made the knife. There was leather involved, right, and all the different materials, and I was like, it's kind of cool. But I still had the mentality of knife making is dirty. I don't want to do that. I kept denying myself that, and then somebody saw that I made a knife. Can you make me a knife too? Okay, so that the next one a little bit better, right? I'm like, okay, and now social media and Instagram's a thing now, right? So I see a Swedish knife, a Swedish knife maker from he's in northern Sweden, and he's making these knives called pukus, and they're like, if you ever see someone talk about an EDC knife, pukus are the original EDCs.
Okay.
Like that is what every EDC knife is based off of. They're the do anything knife. And it was just him. It was kind of like an ASMR kind of experience now that we know what ASMR is, right? And he's there in his little shop in Sweden, and he's putting together these knives, and they have antler and bone and horn and leather, and the list goes on, all on a handle. And he's got the steel, and this looks so cool. And I'm like, that's so cool.
It's all Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I start to emulate that work of stacking those handles, and it's just like, and it just explodes from there. Like, oh, this is really cool. I'm finally putting together all these different materials to make this functional and useful and beautiful and sexy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I'm starting to get into the leather work, and it's just like, oh, this is so cool. But I'm still like holding back.
Just because of the faux pas of like knives.
Yep. And it wasn't really... That's too far ahead. I'll back up. So I'm slowly working towards that. And because of Instagram, I'm starting to meet and see or be exposed to other makers that I didn't know even existed.
You're looking for people online.
Yeah.
You're trying to find a community online.
Yeah.
Trying to find inspiration, trying to find knowledge.
Yeah.
You're just looking for people.
Yeah. And the real big turning point in like saying, okay, now knives are cool. I'm going to do this. I met an axe maker who was also a knife maker on the side, and we just were chatting, and he'd been at it longer than I was, and he said, "Well, what are you making?" And I was like, "Well, I make hidden tang knives and puku style through tangs and stuff, and I put a butt cap on." And he said, "Oh, that's really cool, but what you should make?" I'm like, "What? What?" He said, "You should make integral knives." I'm like, "What's an integral knife?" And he goes, it's got a big blade, and the bolster is part of the blade, and then you put the handle on it. I'm like, well, that sounds really cool. And so I go home and I try make one, And from a smithing standpoint, taking this material and isolating a mass, so it's essentially the same. You never really touch it, and you draw out in an organic sort of plastic matter the blade and the tang or the handle, whatever you design you're going to do, is really fucking challenging. And to do it right and make it look good, it's really fucking challenging. So that's when things started to be like, okay, this is cool.
Can you, when you're looking for a community and finding people, without Instagram, your path looks different. Is it a pretty niche-y, small community? Like, I'm sure you spend a lot of time researching who's who and who's doing what and where. Is it?
It's getting bigger all the time.
Is it? It's becoming a little more cool.
Yes. Yeah, and then at this is going on, and I was just kind of coming into all this, the forging and stuff, just prior to Forged and Fire coming on the scene. And so Forged and Fire comes on the scene, and now everybody wants to make a knife because it's cool.
Yeah. So that's things start changing. Knives become cool.
Yeah.
You all of a sudden found this like wild thing to try, and you're like, I'm in.
Yeah.
Did you know then that was going to be like your direction?
Yeah. I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And I'm still working for the ferries. Yeah. Like that becomes my full-time gig. This is what I do at 2 a.m.
Yeah. Mad scientist.
Yeah, exactly.
It's similar to Dad coming home and staring down the microscope.
Right? Exactly. I had that thought a few years ago too. I'm like, oh yeah. And so I'm busy doing both. And I feel like I'm getting better.
Yeah. You trusting it, or is it? Are people telling you you're getting better, but you're just like, I'm not like, I don't know if this.
Yeah, there's people are saying, oh, that's really cool. Yeah. Like that's really cool, but there's always like, I can do better.
Yeah,
I can do better. And so, out of the blue, I think it was like, I feel like it was in the middle of the night. I get a call from my brother. And he's like, hey, man, how's it going? I'm like, good, man. How about you? And I hadn't really spoken to him a lot over the years. He'd been going through his own sort of stuff, as we all do, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I'm fine. How about you? What's going on? He goes, yeah, I'm good. So what you doing on these dates? I'm like, working? And he goes, you might want to try and take those off. I'm like, why? Are you coming here or something? He goes, no, we're going to go skiing in St. Moritz. I'm like, what? He goes, I bought us tickets. We're going to go skiing in Switzerland. I was like, what? He goes, we're going to go skiing. I bought you a ticket. Here's the ticket. Show up at the Vancouver airport at this date, this time, and I'll meet you in Switzerland. I was like, okay. Fine, great, fun, wonderful. So I try and take this off, right? And it's all from the ferries, right? I call them up. I tell them I had pretty good relations with this crewing office. And I'm like, so guess what? My brother called me. I haven't spoken to him in years, and we're going to go skiing. I said, oh, Chris, that's wonderful. I guess you're going to need time off then. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to need time off. Oh, Chris, I'm so sorry. You don't have anything left in your bank. I'm like, well, is there anybody else? Could I trade? Oh, Chris, I'm so sorry. So sorry. I'm really sorry. Maybe you can trade shifts with somebody. I'm like, I don't really want to trade shifts. And I'd kind of been toying with the idea of like, what would life look like if I no longer worked for the ferries? And I'm like, this is it. This is that point. This is the point where I jump off. I'm like, I'm done. Oh, Chris, you can't do that. You can't do that, Chris. That's not how we do things here. I'm like, well, how do you do them? Oh, you have to give us 2 weeks. No, I'm done. I'm done right now. Oh, okay. Well, send us an email, letter of whatever it was. I can't remember the word. And thanks for joining BC Ferries for your 4 years. Have a wonderful life. Click, hang up. I'm like, I just quit.
For a ski trip.
Yeah, for a ski trip.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, exactly. And thanks, brother. So I go skiing, and I'm like, I don't have to work for the ferries the whole time, and I brought a sketch pad with me, and I'm sketching knives, and I'm like, And then I got back home, and I'm like, what happens now?
When you're over there, brother's creative person. Mm-hmm. Is there? You brainstorming this idea? You brainstorming this vision? Or you keep it to yourself?
I think I kept it to myself.
Yeah.
Knowing me at the time, I probably kept it to myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're sketching things?
Yeah, sketching things.
Get home?
Yeah.
And now you're charging?
No, I'm sleeping in till like noon and drinking lots of coffee and
You're retired.
Yeah. And it took about 6 months to go, okay, this is, you better pony up now.
It's time.
Yeah, it's time. So like after that time period, 6 months in, okay, let's get to work. And yeah.
Do you think it was, were you just like avoiding it in case you weren't good at it? Were you like, what was the hesitation?
Well, there's the security of having, a regular paycheck.
Yeah.
And that is super appealing. Yeah. Big, when you're the creative type, you only get paid if you kind of send things out.
Yeah.
Or people buy your wares. And that's really fucking hard, especially when you're starting out.
Yeah.
How do you get your products, get your creations in front of people?
Yeah.
And especially on a little tiny island like Salt Spring. I mean, they say there's 10,000 people there year round. I'm not sure about that. But no one on the island really has 2 cents to rub together. The people that do are only there for 2 months out of the year. So how do you get them to see your stuff?
Yeah.
So that's where Instagram came in, right? I could get my stuff off the island, and that was exciting. Yeah.
That was going to be your vessel to kind of get the word out.
Yeah.
What you're up to.
Yeah.
So what starts happening?
The next really crazy thing that happened to me was I saw my friend Sean Cunningham in Edmonton. He takes a picture, a selfie, with a friend of mine who I hadn't spoken to in like 20 plus years. And it's Kevin Kent from Knifeware. And I'm like, Sean, you know Kevin? And he's like, yeah, I do. I go to his store all the time, like Knifeware, right? And the Japanese knives. And we sort of, I'm flabbergasted that Sean knows Kevin.
Do you know Kevin was in the industry? Did you know that?
Well, okay, let's back up one second. So I worked with Kevin during my cooking jobs at Celadon.
Gotcha.
And he introduced me to the Pixies, and that was pretty cool. So I'm working with Kevin, right? And he goes off, travels around the world, and we lose contact, as it was before internet and stuff like that, right? And so I see this picture, and I'm coming back to Calgary, and I'm like, Kevin, it's Chris. We used to work together, kind of thing. It'd be great to see you.
Visiting?
Yeah, just visiting.
Okay.
And so we have a little meeting at some coffee shop, I think, over the crossroads. And he's like, so what do you do? I'm like, well, I make knives. He goes, I sell knives. And he was kind enough to take some of my knives and sell them in Kent of Inglewood. And that was another sort of big turning point for me. It's like, oh, there's a little bit more legitimacy to what I'm doing.
You had a few knives just ready to go.
Yeah. And they put them in the store. And that was like, okay.
And they sold?
They sold. And so it was like this upswelling, right? Of like, okay, you're fucking doing something creative now. And here we go.
And with the validation, being in a real store, some stranger buying it, gave you some, that little like, okay, I got this.
Yeah, I mean, up until that was just like friends and family kind of buying it. But the first time somebody who was not in that circle bought something, that was empowering. It's like, because they came to me through an organic manner. Yeah. They liked what I did, my creative stuff, and they got it and they loved it. That's really empowering. Yeah. So
then where's your story go? How the hell do you get back here?
Well, the wife and I split up.
Yep.
I was looking for a soft landing. And being from Calgary, I had all the business connections. All my family is from here. Yep. It was just a natural thing. Yep. So I came back here, got a little place to rent, and started looking for shop space. And the first and only space I looked at was a shop right across the street from my ex's cousin. And I remember years ago, both of us were driving up to go, it was like Christmas or something, driving up going, gosh, you know what? If I ever open up a blacksmith shop, that'd be really cool right over there. And it was meant to be.
No way.
Yep.
Crazy. Yep. What year was that when you opened it here?
June or July of 2020.
Oh, so it's like fresh.
Yeah.
Oh, you're like you and I are just connecting like
you're
freshly here.
Yeah.
That statement, saying that out loud years ago, this would be a great shop for a shop, and now being here and being in it.
Yeah.
How, and do you give that any thought?
It's kind of like one of those things where if you manifest something, it does come true.
And when you say manifest, you mean like say it out loud? Do you mean like...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because when you had contacted me to say, hey, would you like to be on the podcast? I was just thinking to myself out loud. I was like, it'd be kind of neat if I could find a way to talk about my knives and show my knives to somebody, other than my usual circles. And then 5 minutes later, hey, Chris, you want to be on my podcast? I was like, thank you, universe. And thank you, Jeff.
How does that, what do you, I find the best opportunities show up that way. Mm-hmm. And I think the idea of like saying things out loud is kind of something I'm getting behind, and I believe in it. Yeah. That's it. You just like trust it.
Yep. Yeah. I've over the years, I've kind of like, as you get older, right? We're both in our mid 40s now. Yep. We're dealing with all our traumas and everything that's been brought along with us on the journey, and we're healing through that. And, you're trying to manifest abundance, manifest gratitude and all that sort of stuff. And there's something really powerful about saying to whatever is listening, the universe or whatever, God, whatever, that you essentially need help, because it sort of takes it from the internal and makes it external, and then you're spelling things into existence. I think that's pretty cool.
I agree. It's and to know that you say that out loud, and then here you are in this space. Yeah, it's like it has to be this way.
Yeah, totally. And it's just such an organic thing too. And the harder I've pushed for certain things, they don't often work out. I'm not sure why that is, but if I manifest that kind of stuff, grateful for it, they tend to come. And so I try and live by that, blissed and blessed, and, gratitude, and always humble and thankful for what you have. It goes such a long ways.
Yeah. 2 years, well, I guess 3 years now-ish. Yeah. Almost 3 years here?
Yeah, almost 3, yeah.
With same shop?
Yep.
Making crazy knives.
Yeah, that's all I do now. I make knives and I teach other people to make knives. That's cool. That's it. That's,
where you are today creatively, skill set-wise, when you like reverse all this back, is there any way that you could have seen this path and seen the level of craftsmanship that you're playing at right now?
No, because
before you answer.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I know nothing about this industry. Yeah. I see these crazy knives in front of me. How proud are you of these products, and how spectacular are they in the space? With that, I know you're humble.
Okay, yeah.
We'll check all those boxes, but how serious are these?
Well, each knife I make has to be better than the last. If it isn't, then it doesn't feel right. So with the one that you have your hand on over there, that to me is probably as good as I can probably get making that style of knife. To me, it ticks all the boxes. It feels great in the hand. It's going to go through anything. It's got a keen edge on it. The spine is tough, right? It'll last forever. It's just got to be oiled. That's other than that. To me, making a piece of functional heirloom quality art I really get off on that. Yeah, it's pretty powerful to make something pop into existence, just like chrome, right? Yeah, taking the raw materials, secret radical steel, you put it all together, and there it is. It's in your hand, and it's a useful, beautiful, functional thing, and that's incredibly powerful. And I love to be able to share that with people, which is why I love to teach. So.
And the teaching piece, sharing it, was that a natural progression?
It was.
Once you had a space, you knew right away that you kind of wanted to create something?
Yeah, and I had been teaching on Galliano and Salt Spring as well. But it was always a little bit clunky. There weren't the right spaces. So I knew I needed to have a space where I could bring students in. Cool. And there is a legitimacy to it. Like I could effectively do this out of a garage. Excuse me. But it wouldn't feel legitimate to me.
Well, and to the outside too, right? When you can host a party You host an event, you bring people into your world, into your special place. It legitimizes you. It actually builds community. It's like a central place to actually do your thing. Yeah. There's power there.
Absolutely. Just like
that's it.
Yeah.
Do you see what this is going to be in the near term, long term? Do you give that any thought? Do you have like?
I don't tend to future cast as much as maybe I should.
No, don't even like. From day to day.
Yeah, I believe in you can change yourself in every moment of every day. So I'm just gonna the knife here kind of represents as to the highest skill level I'm currently at.
Cool.
But now that I've made it, it's like, okay, next one's gonna be better. Cool. It has to be better.
Cool.
So what's the next step? Like, what can I add? What can I challenge myself with?
Do you ever theme things? Do you ever go through like seasons or themes of what you want to create?
Yeah, I'm really inspired by freshwater fish, for one. Like, to me, that the knife you have your hand on looks like a pike.
Yep.
And so I style all my outdoor knives to look like pikes because they're like the ultimate like water predator, if you like, especially in profile. Right? But yes, I'm really inspired by black and white, shadows and light. So that the contrast and the dichotomy. There was what was his name? He was a photographer. He taught at the Bauhaus School of Photography in Germany long time ago. His name was Laszlo Moholy-Nagy. And he was big into, his thing was light and dark and 1,000 shades of gray. And when I make pieces, I often think about that. So I'm kind of like, shadows really kind of intrigue me. You know, like a shadow of a stick I saw a little while ago. So the stick is thin, but the shadow it casts is huge. So how does one incorporate that into, like, say, a knife? How do you make something like that? I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Cool.
I'll get there one day.
This has been fascinating. The best thing about this is that you and I are now connected.
Yeah.
And I get to watch, and now I like have an inside. You know, I really understand what's going on, and just to watch what this turns into, and for you to know that I am like, you know, my little marketing machine that I have going. I'm like, I just want to help you.
Thank you.
I want like they're spectacular pieces. So I think it's gonna be really cool. Like that project we talked about off camera. You know, like
community. We're just building that community.
That's it.
That's so important. And you know, that's why I started doing like these open house things. Because after the world like shut down, I was like, we were ripped apart in so many ways that we were not prepared for. And just being able to have the power to bring people, like-minded people, not even like whatever, back together and just to start to talk again, I thought was so empowering. Just like, it's okay. Let's talk. We all got similar creative interests here. Let's talk. Yeah.
It's brilliant, man. I think that community play is you know, that's at the foundation of everything. Yeah. And it's the same idea as this podcast, right? Yeah. You try and host a party. Yeah. You try and build a community. Yeah. And then all the opportunities just start happening. Yeah. I end the show with one question. When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
To the skies. I'm a big sky guy. I love prairies. I love the skies that Calgary produces. And if anybody says Calgary, first thing I think of is the massive amount of sky that we can see with the sunrises and sunsets. That's what I see.
That's where it goes. Yeah. Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It was really cool to hear it firsthand. And yeah, I wanted to get that out of the way at the start of this podcast so people have context for what this experience actually is. So cool. Thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jeff.